Welcome, the Lord's chosen. If you ever want to see who secretly hates you, let people investigate your life and watch how disappointed they get when they find nothing. That's when the room gets quiet. Not because something bad was discovered, but because nothing was. And strangely, that bothers people more. Here's a fact most people don't talk about. Studies on workplace behavior show that rumors spread faster than verified information, not because they're true, but because drama is more entertaining than decency. Bad news travels like wildfire. Good character barely gets a whisper. So when someone actually goes digging for dirt and comes back empty-handed, it doesn't satisfy the crowd. It frustrates them, because now the story they were hoping for doesn't exist. Think about how twisted that is for a second. Investigators ask your friends, they ask your coworkers, they ask people who've known you for years, and instead of scandals they get, they're solid, they handle their business, never had issues with them, they're actually cool. That's it. No secret mess, no double life, no chaos, just good reports. You'd think that would be a win, right? But here's the strange part nobody prepares you for. When every review of your life comes back clean, some people don't feel relieved. They feel irritated, because they weren't hoping to clear your name. They were hoping to confirm their gossip. They had already told themselves a juicy story about you. Maybe you were fake, maybe shady, maybe secretly messy. Something had to be wrong. There had to be. Nobody stays that steady, that grounded, that drama-free, right? Then reality ruins their little movie. Now they're left standing there with a notebook full of compliments like, yeah, they're actually dependable. That's not fun to repeat at lunch. Nobody leans in for, guess what? Turns out they're responsible and mind their business. That's the most boring gossip ever invented. You can't even spice that up if you try. So what did you find out? They pay their bills on time. Bro, get out of my face. It almost feels unfair, all that digging for absolutely nothing. But here's where it gets deeper and a little uncomfortable. When people can't find flaws in you, they don't always upgrade their respect. Sometimes they upgrade their resentment, because now they have to face something they didn't want to admit. Maybe you're not lucky. Maybe you're not pretending. Maybe you're just disciplined, low drama, and real. And that hits harder than any scandal ever could. This isn't a story about someone escaping trouble. This is about what happens when trouble goes looking for you and leaves empty-handed. And somehow, that makes people even madder. That's the energy we're stepping into today. Number one, they weren't investigating you. They were hunting for confirmation of their jealousy. Let's be honest about something most people are too polite to say out loud. When people start looking into you, it's rarely about truth. It's about validation. They already decided how they feel about you, and now they just want proof to justify it. Nobody wakes up and says, let me go gather facts like a fair judge. No, they say, something about them bothers me. There has to be something wrong. That something is usually jealousy. Not the dramatic movie-type jealousy either. It's quieter and uglier. It's the kind that shows up when you stay consistent, when you show up on time, when you don't create drama, when you handle your responsibilities without complaining, when you don't fall apart the way they secretly hoped you would. Your stability irritates them because it forces comparison, and comparison is uncomfortable. So instead of admitting, maybe I need to step my game up, they flip it into, nobody's that clean, they must be hiding something. That's when the investigation starts. Notice how the questions aren't neutral. They're loaded. Have they ever done anything shady? You sure they're really that nice? There's got to be something people don't know, right? They're not searching for facts. They're fishing for dirt. They're hoping someone slips and says, well, actually. Because if they can find one flaw, just one crack, it makes them feel better about themselves. It shrinks you back down to human size. It removes the pressure your discipline puts on their excuses. But when every single person says good things about you, it backfires. Now they're stuck, because the story they were ready to tell falls apart. And here's the part that stings them the most. Your character defended you without you even being there. You didn't argue. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't campaign for approval. Your everyday behavior spoke for you. All those small, boring, responsible choices added up quietly over time and built a wall they couldn't break through. That's what really makes them mad. Not that you're perfect, but that they wanted you to be flawed, and reality refused to cooperate. Number 2, people get angrier at innocence than at guilt. This is one of those uncomfortable truths nobody likes to admit, but you see it happen all the time. People say they hate bad behavior, but what really bothers them is someone who doesn't play the game at all. Guilt is familiar. Messiness is relatable. When someone slips up, lies a little, cuts corners, or causes drama, most people shrug and say, well, nobody's perfect. It makes them feel normal. It gives them company in their flaws. It lowers the standard in the room. But innocence, consistency, a clean track record, that's different. That feels personal, because now there's comparison. When you don't have scandals, when your name isn't tied to nonsense, when nobody can point to some chaotic story about you, it quietly exposes everyone else. Your life becomes a mirror they didn't ask for. And some people hate mirrors, not because you're trying to show off, but because your discipline highlights their lack of it. Your calm highlights their chaos. Your self-control highlights their impulsiveness. You didn't accuse them of anything. You didn't preach. You didn't judge. You just lived your life straight. And somehow that feels like an attack to people who constantly make excuses for themselves. So instead of respecting you, they get irritated. They start saying things like, nobody's that clean, or they're just pretending, or give it time, something will come out. They almost want you to mess up, not because they hate you personally, but because your innocence makes them uncomfortable in their own skin. If you fall, they relax. If you stay solid, they tense up. That's the twisted part. Guilt makes you relatable. Innocence makes you intimidating, because now they can't look down on you. They can't say, at least I'm not as bad as them. There's no dirt to point at, no mistake to gossip about, nothing to reduce you to. And when people can't reduce you, they feel small standing next to you. So the anger isn't really about you being too good. It's about the silent pressure your character puts on everyone who refuses to grow. Number 3, gossip collapses when there's no evidence, and that embarrasses the storytellers. Gossip is a game built on assumptions, exaggeration, and the thrill of feeling like you know something nobody else does. It thrives in uncertainty. The moment someone goes digging for proof, the whole thing starts to wobble. And when the proof doesn't exist, it doesn't just fizzle out quietly. It crashes spectacularly, leaving the storytellers looking foolish. People who spread rumors aren't just sharing information, they're building social power. Every whisper, every half-truth, every exaggerated story adds to their sense of control. They get to feel like insiders, like they know the hidden version of reality. That feeling is addictive. But when investigators or even casual fact checks reveal nothing, all that invisible power evaporates. What was supposed to be their edge, their social leverage, suddenly turns into embarrassment. They're caught holding nothing. The collapse of gossip doesn't just reflect poorly on the story, it reflects directly on them. All that energy spent constructing your downfall, all the mental gymnastics to twist minor details into scandal, suddenly looks petty and childish. The louder they were, the harder they fall. And human psychology makes this even worse for them. It's not just that they failed, it's that their credibility takes a hit. Once people realize, wait, everything they said about this person is false, the storytellers are no longer entertaining or influential. They're laughable. And here's the kicker. Your clean record doesn't even need defending. It's like a mirror that shows their exaggeration for what it is. They don't get to save face by blaming circumstances or arguing their case, because their entire narrative depended on you being flawed. Their failure is public, even if subtle. The whispers now carry awkward silence, and the social thrill they expected turns into internal panic, irritation, or even resentment. You didn't fight them. You didn't try to expose them. You didn't manipulate outcomes. You just lived your life consistently. And by doing so, you triggered a truth that's unbearable to people invested in a lie. They got nothing, and the story they wanted to tell, the one that put them above you, collapsed entirely. Their embarrassment becomes your silent victory. Number 4, your consistency destroyed their fantasy version of you. People love stories. They love to build narratives about others because it makes the world feel predictable. They need characters they can fit into boxes. The troublemaker, the drama queen, the liar, the underachiever. It's comforting to think you know someone completely. That way they can make sense of your actions, manipulate your image in conversations, or justify their own feelings toward you. But consistency? That's the thing that ruins their carefully constructed stories. When you show up day after day, doing what you said you'd do, keeping promises, handling responsibilities without drama, they can't pigeonhole you. You don't wobble. You don't give them material. You don't suddenly act in ways that confirm their assumptions. Every time they try to place you in their mental story, you quietly refuse to fit. Your reliability and stability disrupt the plot they wanted to write about you. And that is unsettling for people who thrive on having narratives they can control. The fantasy version of you existed in their heads long before anyone asked questions. They imagined chaos, hidden flaws, or secret mistakes. That story made them feel smart, superior, or justified in their judgment. They didn't just want to know the truth. They wanted confirmation of the version they already invented. When your life shows up clean and straightforward, the fantasy crumbles. And humans don't handle shattered illusions well. The harder they imagined you as someone messy or problematic, the harder it hits them when reality refuses to comply. Consistency doesn't scream or make a scene. It quietly dismantles assumptions. It's a slow, subtle force, but it's devastating for anyone who needs you to be flawed to feel comfortable with themselves. Your life becomes a silent rebellion against their expectations. They expected drama. You gave them steadiness. They imagined chaos. You gave them order. That quiet refusal to fit their fantasy doesn't just disappoint them. It unsettles them, frustrates them, and makes them realize that the story they were counting on telling was never real. And in that quiet frustration, your power grows, not because you sought it, not because you tried, but because you refused to perform for anyone's narrative other than your own. Number 5, being unproblematic is socially threatening. It sounds strange, but it's true. People get uncomfortable around someone who doesn't create drama. Most social groups, workplaces, and even friendships have an invisible rhythm, a flow of complaints, gossip, and small conflicts. That noise becomes the background everyone expects. When someone enters that space and refuses to play into it, when they don't gossip, argue unnecessarily, or make waves, they disrupt the rhythm. Their calm becomes a mirror, showing everyone else's chaos in sharp relief. Being unproblematic doesn't mean being boring. It means being steady, reliable, and intentional. It means handling your responsibilities without turning life into a spectacle. You don't need attention to exist. Your presence alone is enough to unsettle those who thrive on distraction and drama. People who rely on chaos to feel connected, validated, or superior suddenly feel exposed. Your consistency highlights their flaws, their impulsiveness, and their immaturity. And human nature doesn't handle that exposure quietly. Instead of admiration, they often react with irritation or resentment. The social threat comes from the fact that you can't be controlled through conventional social pressures. Gossip, rumors, and small manipulations are tools people use to influence others. But if you don't participate in their game, if you refuse to provide scandal or weakness, those tools become useless. They realize their usual tactics, insults, exaggeration, social manipulation, don't work on you. That lack of control is alarming. The people around you who rely on influence and comparison feel unmoored because your unproblematic nature refuses to fit into the system they understand. It's ironic. The quieter, simpler, and cleaner your life, the louder your impact becomes. You don't shout or make demands, but your presence challenges everyone else to reflect on themselves. And that reflection is uncomfortable, even threatening. It exposes not just your steadiness, but their inability to achieve the same. The result is predictable: subtle hostility, whispers of irritation, and attempts to bring you into the chaos you consistently avoid. Your calmness isn't a flaw, it's a mirror. And that mirror scares people far more than someone who openly fails ever could. Number 6, they wanted a scandal, not the truth. Most people don't actually want the truth. They want stories that are easy to repeat, juicy enough to entertain, and shocking enough to give them a thrill. Truth is boring. Truth is inconvenient. Truth requires effort, reflection, and sometimes even respect for someone else's life. Scandal, on the other hand, comes pre-packaged with drama and moral excitement. It allows people to gossip, judge, and feel superior all at once. When investigators started asking questions about you, the expectation wasn't to uncover reality. It was to unearth drama. They were waiting for a story they could share at lunch, a secret they could flaunt, a mistake they could point at and say, "Finally, I knew it." But nothing came. Every answer, every reference, every word from people who actually knew you returned clean. No mistakes, no hidden chaos, no skeletons. And that absence didn't satisfy them. It infuriated them. They weren't looking for truth. They were looking for a narrative that validated their suspicions, confirmed their envy, and allowed them to feel clever. Your normalcy refused to comply. Your everyday life, lived responsibly and quietly, disrupted the entertainment they were hoping to consume. The frustration grows because people expect stories to behave like equations. Input the gossip, output the scandal. When that fails, their emotional investment in the tale collapses. They're left with nothing, forced to confront a reality that doesn't align with their imagination. And that emptiness doesn't feel neutral. It feels like a loss. They invested in a version of you that didn't exist, and that disappointment turns into irritation. The irony is that your integrity and consistency aren't even active moves. You didn't need to defend yourself. You didn't need to showcase your honesty. You simply lived a life that couldn't be twisted into entertainment. By doing so, you quietly controlled the narrative in the most powerful way, by making sure there wasn't one. Scandal hunters left empty-handed, and in that emptiness, your reputation grew stronger, untouched by exaggeration or rumor, while their disappointment revealed more about them than it ever could about you. Number 7, your name kept coming back clean, and that felt suspicious to them. There's a strange, almost paradoxical reaction people have when they can't find dirt on someone. Normally, we assume that innocence is a good thing, but when every single person who knows you comes back with positive feedback, it doesn't always inspire admiration. For some, it triggers suspicion instead. Human brains are wired to expect imperfection, Because most people live with it daily. We're used to excuses, small lies, half-truths, and mistakes. Clean records feel unnatural. When reality refuses to conform to what they believe is normal, their minds start to fabricate doubts, even without evidence. The more consistent the feedback, the more uncomfortable it becomes for them. They can't possibly be that perfect, their thoughts say. Every story, every casual remark, every reference comes back, affirming your character, and yet they can't accept it. Your innocence becomes confusing. It's unsettling because it doesn't match the narrative they wanted to confirm. They expected scandal, weakness, or chaos. Instead, they were met with truth. Steady, reliable, unshakable truth. And that creates tension. They begin looking for hidden motives or secret faults that don't exist. They reanalyze your actions, trying to find cracks where none can be found. Their brains almost refuse to believe the clean picture painted by everyone else. You didn't manipulate or force these reports. You simply lived your life consistently. Your good reputation formed quietly, without drama, without fanfare, and it became a shield. It's hard to attack someone when every credible source defends them silently and naturally. That kind of clean record doesn't just protect you, it intimidates people who expected vulnerability. It undermines their assumptions, exposes their impatience for drama, and forces them to confront their own insecurities. The irony is brutal. Your character doesn't need to fight to maintain itself, but their disbelief keeps them tangled in frustration, envy, and irritation. They wanted flaws, and instead, they got a mirror that reflects their own impatience for imperfection. Your innocence isn't just admirable, it's destabilizing for those who live in the comfort of suspicion and chaos. Number 8, you accidentally exposed who the real troublemakers were. When investigators start asking questions and everyone comes back saying positive things about you, something unexpected happens. The spotlight shifts. Suddenly, attention isn't on you anymore. It's on the people who actually create chaos. All those whispers, all those accusations, all the energy spent trying to drag you down, bounce back. Your consistency, your quiet competence, and your refusal to give them material forces the system to reveal the real instigators. And people notice it's not that you set out to expose anyone. You didn't plan it, you didn't scheme, you didn't even try to defend yourself. You simply lived your life in a way that made others' behavior obvious by contrast. The loudest complainers, the ones who thrive on gossip, exaggeration, and small betrayals, suddenly can't hide behind false narratives about you. Their own patterns stand out when compared to your calm and reliable approach. Their mischief, their shortcuts, their manipulations, the things they thought were invisible, get highlighted automatically. And this creates tension. People realize that the stories they believed about you were baseless, and now they start examining the others in the group. Those who wanted to ride the gossip wave suddenly look petty, controlling, or manipulative. It's a reversal nobody saw coming. The people who expected to enjoy watching your fall are now forced to confront who really causes trouble. And the irony is deliciously silent. You didn't lift a finger to point anyone out, and yet the truth becomes clear. The deeper effect is psychological. People who thought they could control the narrative about you feel powerless, while those who relied on chaos to feel important get exposed simply because you refused to participate in the game. Your unshakable presence inadvertently uncovers patterns, habits, and tendencies that otherwise would have stayed buried. The attention they thought would weaken you shifts uncomfortably onto themselves. And that realization stings far more than anything they could have ever said about you. By staying steady, by keeping your life clean, by refusing to give them material, you didn't just protect yourself, you let reality quietly speak for itself. The truth revealed itself without drama, without confrontation, and in doing so you became untouchable, while unintentionally exposing everyone else's cracks. Number 9, your reputation was built quietly, and that's what made it bulletproof. Reputation isn't made in headlines or loud declarations. It's built in the small, consistent choices that most people overlook. Every time you show up on time, every promise you keep, every task you finish without complaint, you're quietly stacking bricks that no gossip or rumor can ever knock down. People tend to underestimate this because it's invisible in the moment. There's no applause, no social media posts, no dramatic reveal. But over time, those actions create something far stronger than any temporary story or scandal. They create trust, respect, and credibility that can't be faked. When investigators started asking around, all those tiny, unnoticed decisions paid off. Each coworker, friend, or acquaintance didn't have to think hard. They already knew the truth. They remembered how you handled situations, how you treated people, and how you acted when nobody was watching. Your reputation had been quietly defending you for years, and now it was on full display, stronger than any accusation could touch. That's the power of silent consistency. It doesn't need promotion, it doesn't need defense, and it can't be destroyed by someone's imagination or jealousy. The brilliance of a reputation built quietly is that it forces people to confront reality, not perception. Gossipers assume flaws exist because they're used to seeing them everywhere else. But your steady character gives nothing to twist. Every attempt to attack you is met with a wall of lived experience and real testimony. The longer your reputation has been silently accumulating, the harder it is for others to argue against it. What seems ordinary to you, being responsible, kind, and reliable, becomes extraordinary to those trying to paint a false picture. This kind of reputation doesn't just protect you, it intimidates. It's a quiet power that doesn't scream, doesn't seek attention, but exists in every person who has witnessed your consistency. The irony is brutal. The same life that might look mundane to you terrifies anyone hoping to find flaws. And that terror isn't based on lies or exaggeration, it's based on reality. By simply living steadily and genuinely, you've created armor that no rumor, no gossip, no investigation can penetrate. Your reputation becomes a truth so undeniable that anyone trying to challenge it ends up exposing their own insecurity instead. Number 10, they realize they misjudged you for years. There's a quiet, brutal moment that happens when people expect dirt and find none. They suddenly have to confront the fact that they've been wrong about you all along. That realization isn't just awkward, it's infuriating. Humans hate admitting mistakes, especially when those mistakes involve underestimating someone. They've spent years building a mental image of you, flawed, messy, unreliable, maybe even manipulative, and that image shaped how they interacted with you, how they judged you, and how they talked about you. Then reality shows up, calm, steady, and unshakable, and the image they relied on crumbles. It's not just a matter of embarrassment. Misjudging someone affects pride. People invest energy in their assumptions because it validates their worldview. They've justified their criticism, their distance, their frustration, or even their envy by believing a story that isn't true. When all those assumptions collapse, they're forced to face the uncomfortable truth. Their judgment was off, and they may have treated you unfairly along the way. That pressure doesn't make them thankful. It makes them defensive, irritated, and often resentful. The irony is that you didn't even have to do anything extraordinary. You didn't need to announce your intentions or correct every perception. You simply lived consistently, honorably, and quietly. Every day of reliability, every moment of integrity, built a record that couldn't be twisted. When others finally looked closely, the contrast between expectation and reality became impossible to ignore. That's the danger of being misjudged. People invest so much in their false assumptions that the truth feels threatening. Your innocence, your consistency, and your calm aren't just protective, they're destabilizing. By simply being who you are, you've forced others to reevaluate their entire perception of you, and that can create more discomfort than confrontation ever could. Being underestimated for years turns into a quiet power when the truth finally surfaces. It's not just vindication, it's a mirror reflecting not your flaws, but theirs. And that revelation, subtle as it may be, leaves them scrambling to make sense of a reality they never anticipated. Number 11. They thought they were watching you, but you were building silent allies. While people were busy whispering, speculating, and trying to dig up dirt on you, something was happening quietly in the background that they never noticed. Every interaction you had, every moment of genuine kindness, every time you handled a situation with calm and fairness, was quietly creating trust and loyalty. People naturally gravitate toward consistency and reliability, even if they don't realize it immediately. Those small actions, invisible to the gossipers, formed a network of silent allies who could vouch for you without hesitation. And that network, it became your invisible defense system, stronger than any rumor could ever threaten. The fascinating part is that this happens without effort. You don't have to try to win anyone over, post about it, or explain yourself. Your behavior speaks for itself. And because these allies experience your integrity firsthand, their words carry weight. When investigators or outsiders ask questions, these are the voices that rise calm and credible, delivering the truth. They don't need to exaggerate or embellish because what they know about you is already unassailable. Each person who knows you well becomes a living testament, silently reinforcing your reality, while those hunting for scandal scramble for confirmation that will never come. Meanwhile, the people trying to destabilize you have no idea what's happening. They assume they have the upper hand because they see whispers and hear speculation. They believe they are controlling the narrative. But in reality, their actions are exposing themselves while strengthening your position. Every attempt to undermine you highlights the contrast between their chaos and your quiet influence. Your life becomes a kind of gravity. They might think they're pulling strings, but all the while, your allies are holding the real space steady, keeping the truth intact. This invisible network transforms your innocence and consistency into power. You don't need to fight back, argue, or prove yourself. By simply living authentically and treating people with respect, you build defenders who matter most. And when the moment comes for your reputation to be assessed, those silent allies speak louder than any rumor ever could, ensuring that your character remains untouchable while the gossipers are left exposed and frustrated. Number 12. Your calm life makes chaotic people feel exposed. There's a quiet kind of power in simply being steady while everyone around you is flailing. People who thrive on drama, gossip, and chaos are used to blending into the noise. Their mistakes, insecurities, and impulsive behaviors get lost in the swirl of disorder. But when someone enters the scene who refuses to participate in the frenzy, someone who keeps their life orderly, their mind clear, and their behavior consistent, it acts like a spotlight. Your calm life doesn't make them look better, it makes them look worse. Every chaotic choice they've ever made suddenly feels amplified next to your quiet competence. This is why gossipers and troublemakers often resent the calm ones more than they resent the obviously flawed. A messy person can be relatable. They can be criticized and forgiven because their flaws are visible and expected. But someone who refuses to slip, stumble, or engage in petty games threatens the narrative others have constructed. Your calmness isn't just your own success. It's an unspoken mirror reflecting their shortcomings. They don't have to compare consciously. Your presence forces it anyway. Every delayed reaction, every measured word, every consistent action quietly underscores what they are not. The frustration this generates is subtle but powerful. People want to see you stumble, fail, or act out in ways that validate their own chaos. When you don't, it leaves them anxious and irritated. They can't explain why your presence bothers them. They only know that it does. Your steadiness exposes their lack of control, their impulsiveness, their inability to manage themselves as well as you manage yours. And you never did anything to provoke it. You didn't call attention to your discipline or highlight your calm demeanor. It wasn't performative. It simply exists, and that existence is destabilizing for those who expect life to behave like a storm around everyone else. Your calm life isn't just a personal advantage. It's a silent force that unmasks insecurity, amplifies chaos in others, and positions you as untouchable simply because you refuse to participate in the noise. Number 13. The failed investigation damaged their credibility, not yours. When people go digging for dirt on you and come up empty-handed, something unexpected happens. The failure doesn't harm you, it harms them. The ones who started the search assumed they had the upper hand. They imagined uncovering secrets, confirming suspicions, and finally proving their theories about you. But the moment every source comes back clean, every witness confirms your character, their narrative crumbles. And here's the twist. It isn't just a quiet defeat for them. It's a visible one. Their credibility takes a hit because anyone paying attention can see that their accusations were baseless. Humans are social creatures who rely on perception. If someone appears informed, clever, or in the know, their words carry weight. Gossip, suspicion, and judgment only spread effectively if the storyteller seems credible. When investigators report nothing, when co-workers and friends defend you effortlessly, it exposes the difference between rumor and reality. Suddenly, the people who tried to drag you down look petty, misinformed, or even manipulative. The failure of their attempt to create scandal becomes evidence of their own weakness. Meanwhile, your reputation doesn't need defending. It exists in every quiet interaction you've ever had, every consistent choice you've made, every moment of integrity that builds a record impossible to contradict. You didn't need to prove yourself because your life already spoke the truth, louder and more convincingly than any accusation could. The contrast couldn't be starker. Your credibility grows stronger with every failed attempt to attack you, while theirs diminishes with each exposure of their baseless claims. The irony is sharp. They thought they were undermining you, controlling the narrative, and gaining social leverage. Instead, their actions amplified your integrity. Your innocence became undeniable, and their credibility quietly unraveled in the process. The world sees the difference, and the people trying to harm you are left scrambling to reclaim authority or respect. They've lost simply by failing to find what wasn't there. By existing authentically and letting your character accumulate naturally, you turn their attacks into silent victories for yourself, proving that strength often lies in calm consistency, while chaos collapses around those who try to manufacture it. Number 14. The real reason they're mad is simple. They couldn't reduce you. There's a harsh truth most people never acknowledge. A lot of the anger, frustration, and gossip aimed at someone isn't about what they did. It's about what others can't do to them. People are comfortable with a world they can categorize and control. Labels exist so they can shrink others down, define them in a way that makes them manageable, and convince themselves they are safe. When someone doesn't fit those boxes, when no scandal, flaw, or drama exists to exploit, it throws the whole system off. You can't be reduced, and that refusal makes people uncomfortable, even angry. Humans are wired to look for patterns, weaknesses, and vulnerabilities. It's how social hierarchies operate. But when a person consistently acts with integrity, stability, and self-respect, there's nothing to latch onto. Every attempt to twist reality, create a story, or exaggerate details comes up empty. They want to simplify you so they can deal with you emotionally, but your life refuses to be simplified. Every clean reference, every testimony of trustworthiness, every quiet success becomes proof that you can't be diminished. And that inability to diminish someone feels threatening in ways most people can't even articulate. The frustration they feel isn't rational. It's not about fairness or even truth. It's the subtle, gnawing awareness that you exist outside the categories they rely on to make sense of the world. They can't control you, mock you effectively, or twist your story into a narrative where they feel superior. Every attempt to make you smaller fails, and the more they try, the more obvious their own insecurities and failures become. The power of being unreducible is quiet but undeniable. You don't need to fight back or prove a point. Your life itself becomes untouchable. People can whisper, speculate, or invent theories all they want, but the truth stands, unshakable and simple. You cannot be collapsed into a narrative that satisfies them. That inability to control or diminish you is what makes them bitter, jealous, and restless. And in that silence, your strength is unmistakable. By simply existing honestly, steadily, and without compromise, you've created a reality they can't manipulate, and that truth hits harder than anything else could. Conclusion. When you step back and look at the full picture, it's clear why investigations, gossip, and whispered suspicions fail so spectacularly against someone who lives with integrity, consistency, and calm. Every rumor, every assumption, every attempt to dig up dirt doesn't just fall flat, it backfires. Your life quietly exposes jealousy, highlights inconsistency in others, and creates a network of silent allies who unknowingly defend you at every turn. The very people who expected to control the narrative find themselves stripped of power, their credibility weakened, their assumptions shattered. They wanted chaos, scandal, and flaws. You gave them none, and in that absence, you became untouchable. What makes this scenario so profound is how subtle it is. You didn't need drama, confrontation, or loud proclamations to prove your worth. Every small, everyday choice, showing up, staying calm, doing the right thing when nobody's watching, added up into an unstoppable force. By being consistent and unreducible, you didn't just protect yourself from gossip and scrutiny, you elevated your presence and exposed those who thrive on noise and manipulation. Your calm became a mirror for others' chaos. Your innocence became more powerful than any fabricated scandal. Your reputation became bulletproof, and your influence quietly undeniable. And here's the ultimate truth. People often get angrier at those they can't reduce than at those who stumble or fail. When you refuse to be diminished, when your life refuses to fit into their story, the frustration they feel isn't about you. It's about their inability to manipulate, categorize, or control you. That alone is proof of your strength. By simply living authentically, you've created a reality that no gossip, rumor, or investigation can touch. So take this as a reminder. Your life, your consistency, and your integrity are your greatest defenses and your quietest victories. They cannot take from you what you've built day by day, and every failed attempt to undermine you only reinforces your power. If this video gave you clarity, insight, or a moment of, finally, someone gets it, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss content like this. Smash the like button if you feel the power of integrity and consistency in your own life. Comment below and share your thoughts, your victories, or even your experiences with gossip and scrutiny. Your story matters here. And share this video with anyone who needs to understand that living clean, steady, and unapologetically yourself is more powerful than any rumor could ever be. Don't just watch, Join the movement of those who refuse to be reduced. Stay blessed, chosen ones.